Hello everyone, I'm John Jordan and I'm going to take you through the graphs that compose what we call in the big blockchain game report. So this is the first time we've done this. This is for Q1 2024 and we plan to do it every quarter, so to give a sort of an overview of what's going on in the blockchain game sector. So obviously looking at a whole bunch of data, so the data is what we're looking at in this particular presentation. If you look at the full report, there's a whole bunch of analysis as well, which is obviously contextualizing that data. But let's go through some graphs and see what the quarter looked like across various different data points. Okay, so one that we always like to see is the most popular blockchain games. So we can see here, this is actually quite a long time scale. So this is from 2022, so this is over 2 years worth of data. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. I go through these every month. But the obvious thing to see here, if we're looking at sort of Q1 2024, which is sort of this bit here, is the massive growth of Pixels. So Pixels is a social RPG, sort of a browser-based game. It was originally launched on Polygon, but went live on the Ronin blockchain in sort of late October 2024, November 2023, sorry, I should say. And we can see it sort of got, it grew much faster than people thought, certainly faster than the team thought, but it quickly became actually the most popular blockchain game. So by the end of the year, in December, it was the most popular blockchain game with about 100,000 daily active unique wallets. This is what the vertical scale here is. And we can see the other sort of games, won't go into them in a lot of detail, but they're sort of games that have been around for a while, and they're sort of dropping off. Axie Infinity, obviously the first game to launch on the Ronin blockchain, that had its peak in November 2021, so off the end of this scale. But anyway, Pixels grew, and just as in the quarter has continued to grow. So various things it's done. It had a play to airdrop event for its new token that was called Pixels. It basically got rid of its old token called Berry and replaced it with Pixels. So the Pixels token actually hasn't gone up very much in value. We'll look at that later. But there's a way in which you can earn, if you play the game, you can earn the Pixels token. So there is a play to earn element. But more than that, we've sort of seen various other outside communities come into Pixels. So Mochaverse, Animoca Brand sort of collective community, that they came in quite early on. And they drove, set up to about a third of the growth for Pixels came from the Mochaverse community. And since then we've seen guilds come in. So YGG, one of the sort of famous old guilds, really the first guild that was involved with Axie Infinity, they've come back in, and sort of they're engaging more generally on the Ronin blockchain. And we see Pixels now, just the growth is still happening. It is now a classic hockey stick, rocket ship, whatever you want to call it, growth curve, where it's just basically going up vertically. So 600,000 daily active unique wallets. We'll see how high it can go. Will it break Axie's record? I think it was 1.1 million on-chain wallets in one day. It could do that. I mean, it's slightly irrelevant. I guess the interesting thing to look at in the coming quarters is where does it sort of sustain out? Well, when after you go through a growth phase, then people sort of decide if they're going to play the game or not. So when it's lost some of this hockey stick growth, what happens then? Can it sustain, and at what level does it end up? So we'll keep an eye on that. But very, very sort of good news in the sense that there's lots of speculation in the blockchain game sector, but we also want to. So basically at some point, speculation needs to be people playing the game and paying money. And actually, Pixels is now generating $1.6 million of revenue a month. So that's not bad going actually. And that's really, people need to become these VIPs. You pay $10 a month to become a VIP, and that gives you boosts in the game and also allows you to earn more and take some of the tokens out as well. So that's what's going on with Pixels. And we've not really seen a game. We're not seeing a game at this level for 2 years. Okay, so coming back to speculation, so let's look at some tokens. So these are the top gaming tokens, and this is how they performed in Q1 2024. So go through them in a little bit of detail, I suppose. So these are listed in sort of size. So the biggest gaming token is IMX, the mutable token. And we can see in general tokens went up in Q1 2024. That's not a great surprise. Ethereum went up like over 50%. Bitcoin hit an all-time high. So tokens in general are up, but a few have gone down. So it's not like everything's going up, and we can clearly see some things have gone up a lot. So some things have doubled, some things have done more than doubled, and some things sort of just gone up a bit. So Immutable's done okay, but nothing amazing. The Gala token sort of come back in. I mean, I sort of laughingly say sort of Gala token is a bit of a meme coin now, really. I'm not quite sure what's going on with their games. Not really talking about games very much, but it's up 100%. I mean, that's sort of part of a sort of classic. Lots of people sort of buying meme coins at the moment. Maybe the Beam token. So that's actually technically it's not a new token. It's technically the reworking of the old Merit Circle MC token. But anyway, the Beam token hit an all-time high. So Beam is a sort of a scaling its own sort of scaling solution running on the Avalanche blockchain. So ATM means all-time high. Sand token, Axie token, the Ape token, and the decentralized mana token didn't do very much, really. I mean, they've been around for a while. So the Ron token, that's kind of interesting in the sense that we just looked at Pixels doing very well. That runs on the Ronin blockchain. So the Ron token has generally been doing well for that reason. It's been out for a while, actually. 2022 it came out, but it's now hit an all-time high, up it's over doubled in the quarter. The Illuvium token actually did okay. Interesting one here, the Prime token. So this is the token behind the trading card game Parallel and the new sort of AI sim game that's coming out next year called Parallel Colony. So that's driven a lot of sort of, could say, speculation around that. So that has hit an all-time high as well and more than doubled during the quarter. WeMix token did very well last year, so maybe that's just come off the boil a little bit. Interestingly, the WeMix is just all WeMade, the company behind WeMix, South Korean developers, just launched its game called Night Crows. So it's a PC mobile game, very sort of high quality MMORPG with some blockchain in there. But as we see, speculation on the price of tokens is not always related to actually what's going on in the ecosystem. The Engine coin been around since 2017, still knocking around. The GMT token, so this actually went down. This is the token behind the Steppen game and the Gas Heroes game from Fine Satoshi Labs, but not a lot going on there. Super token, bit of a meme coin, I would say, and actually did pretty well in the quarter. Pixels token did hit an all-time high. I mean, this is a token that's only gone live 6 weeks ago, so no surprise there. Didn't actually perform, that well. Maybe sort of 45% up, 45%. We'll see how it goes with Pixels. YGG token, very the most successful during the quarter. A very old token, 2021 even 2022 era token, but launched on the Ronin blockchain, and that really boosted it up. Comes out a bit since actually. The Exia token, so again a new token, the gaming L3 on Arbitrum. So that's done hit an all-time high. Portal was very much a meme coin and has done pretty badly. And the Wild token, which is from a project called Wilder World. They announced some infrastructure stuff, so they've sort of done pretty well. So in general, things are up, but not everything's up the same, and some things are down. And generally, newer tokens have generally done better. That's what we expect in a bull market. We wait to see what a token does when it's gone through a few cycles. Okay, let's look at investments into the sector, which is again another sort of view of sentiment. So here we're looking at the last 4 years. So green is what we're looking at here. This is the number of investments that I've tracked. So a little bit of it's hard to track everything. So a little bit of a little bit of uncertainty here, but roughly I think the year on year, month on month is comparison is useful. Obviously, the main thing here we can see 2022 was the peak year, particularly at the start of 2022. So these first sort of 6-7 months, even 8 months here, a lot of investments, 30 investments here. So this is when the investments are announced. So in March 2022 was the peak. We had over 47 I think investments there. So in 2024, how did we get on? Actually did not too badly in terms of numbers, so better than last year. And we can see it sort of growing, so the green lines are growing throughout the quarter. So we're seeing more activity. That's a lot of IDOs, there's a lot of node sales, that sort of stuff. So sort of smaller things that are playing into the sort of retail crypto investor. Not really seen a lot of rebound, I think, from the traditional non-crypto VCs or game VCs. So it's a little bit of sort of just the crypto sentiment. Everyone's sort of happy Bitcoin's doing really well, and a bit more money floating around for the crypto people who can now sort of maybe get involved in some IDOs and make some quick money. If we look at actual money though, not quite so positive. I think this is because, as I say, that the bigger investors are not getting involved yet. So again, March 2022 was the big spike. So over $1 billion announced in revenue in investment that year. We're down here somewhere about much smaller, less than a third, or much less than a sixth. So this is similar to last year actually, so not too bad, but and growing again across the quarter. So January, February, March, we did see actually quite strong growth, but historically better than 2021, but still sort of a long way to go in the quarter, and actually sort of over the entire quarter still down compared to 2023, and obviously a lot down compared to 2022. So sentiment's growing, but still a way to go, I think. If we look at some of the projects that have been announcing funding, there are some decent amounts going in though, just sort of fewer of them than we've seen before. So the big investments have actually been raised from some of these game studios. So Parallel Studios raised $35 million, taking its total funding to 85. So we've mentioned Parallel, that's a trading card game. That's the Prime token, so that's one of the reasons the Prime token has done very well, because they've just announced this big funding round. Gunzilla Games launching a PC console shooter game called Off the Grid, running on Avalanche, doing a whole bunch of infrastructure stuff. They raised 30 million. Some of that was in tokens, some of that was in NFTs, some of that was in VC funding. So they're pretty well funded. I mean, they've gone through lots of different funding rounds. So again, they've raised over $100 million over several years. Elixir is a sort of Web3 game sort of distribution discovery platform. So a seed fund, 14 million. Carbonated, they're making a mobile game on the XPlay or XPLA blockchain. So that's from a South Korean company, Come to Us, and Come to Us led that round, $13 million. Again, they've raised $25 million now. Illuvium did a sort of a Series A round, which is sort of funny because they've raised like tons, over $100 million, done a lot of NFT sales back in the day. So interesting that they're still raising. Metacini is a sort of a metaverse type game, and Overworld from Xterio. Some reasonable sums of money going into these, and I should say these companies are also obviously raising money from NFT sales. So Overworld did a big NFT sale in December last year. So this is just looking at sort of in the quarter, sort of traditional VC money coming in. If we look at what investors are being active, there is a sort of lot of activity. And what I've done here is, so this column here is the number of deals these companies got involved with, and I've led with the number of sort of lead investors. So when you're doing an investment round, a traditional investment round, some company will often be the lead investor. They'll set the terms. They'll do most of the due diligence, checking that the company's legit and stuff, and they'll invest the most amount of money. So if you're a lead investor, you're doing you're sort of doing the most work, and that's I think more interesting. So we can see Framework did 3 deals and led all those deals. So Directive Games is doing the Machine Arena on the Ronin blockchain, a sort of top-down shooter, team-based shooter. They also led into Pixels, the Pixels game that we've spoken about, and also Arena X Labs, which is doing an AI game, a bit more experimental. So Framework, pretty well regarded, don't just do blockchain, they're a traditional sort of tech investor. Delphi are a crypto-only investor, so they did 5 deals and led 2 of those deals. You can see they actually did Directive as well, so they co-led, which is not quite so cool. But anyway, so Delphi co-led Directive. They also co-led into ReadyGG, which is a mobile game platform. Invested in the game Metalcore from Studio 369. Pixelmon, again, another sort of well-known game in the space. Animoca Brands, very busy, actually did 6 deals, tends not to lead, it did some it co-led with Illuvium and co-led I think into Monstudio as well. Pantera, pretty well known crypto investor, so they led into Hyleka, which is a sort of games analytic sort of tool platform. Longhash did a deal with YGG. Yoga Gaming, as we saw, King River was co-lead into Illuvium with Animoca. So some of these only did sort of 1 deal. And there were some, which gets a bit more interesting, that are very crypto heavy, very active crypto investors. Tend not to do sort of big amounts, but say like Shima Capital did 4 investments and led into Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow game. Bitcraft, well-known games VC, did 4 deals, led one into Metal, so it led into Metalcore, which it was already an investor in already, I should say. Merit Circle, the sort of DAO, and they're doing the Beam token. They were pretty active, 5 deals. Spartan Capital, again very active, 6 deals. Fermion, again very active. They didn't lead any deals, but they were sort of, you can see the deals are sort of happening. You can see these sort of company, lots of these investors sort of work together over time and sort of do co-investing deals when they get comfortable with each other. Yield Guild Gaming did 5, Cypher Capital, 32-bit, so more like a DAO. And they're investing in all these, a lot of names coming up again and again. Gabby Dizon, who's the one of the co-founders at YGG, did a bunch of angel deals. Also worth mentioning, there were a lot of angels actually. I sort of call them DJ Mafia. So Alex Becker from the Neo Tokyo project, he was an angel investor in 4 of these deals as well. And there are a bunch of other ones. Maybe look at that in future reports. So quite a lot of activity. Sky Mavis doing some deals itself. The company behind the Ronin blockchain, Solana Foundation. So a lot of activity. I would say these are often sort of smaller funds. Hashed is an interesting one. They did very well out of Axie Infinity back in the day. So a lot of activity. But I would say we're not seeing sort of the big American. We're not seeing A16Z. We're not seeing Griffin. We're not seeing some of those sort of bigger funds who can invest 10, 20, $30 million at the moment. Okay, so let's finally look at what's happening in terms of data from the big blockchain game list. So this is did done quite a lot of these monthly. We've been doing these, and what we're looking at in the quarter is the new games, the discontinued games, and where we are overall in the sector. So what we're looking at here is how many new blockchain games were announced in Q1 2024. Again, we won't cover everything. We won't see every new game, but we generally we sort of get majority of stuff that's being announced there. And what were these, when these games were announced, what chains were they announcing they were running on? So the biggest single category is multi-chain. So these are blockchain games that are deploying on multiple blockchains. So could be they're putting their NFTs on Ethereum and they're running their game code on Base or something like that, that sort of thing. Or it could be people doing, you sometimes see people do Solana and Arbitrum, or there's all manner of different things. Some people have running across 5 chains or whatever, But we can see the single biggest category now is multi-chain. It's always sort of been the case, but it's growing. So more people are, as infrastructure becomes easier to deploy, more people are basically going multi-chain because they think it offers them sort of more flexibility. Some we don't know. There are 15% are going on other chains, so this means other compared to these ones here that we have around the side. And these are looking at the games that are announced. We're just on one chain. So the biggest growth came from Immutable. 14% of the games of these 119 games announced are going on Immutable. Finchia, which is a South Korean blockchain, 8%. Arbitrum, 5%. Blast, which is this slightly degen ETH yielding L2, which is doing loads of crazy stuff and giving away loads of tokens to projects. We'll see how many of those projects actually last, but lots of people are announcing stuff for Blast. BNB still some new stuff going on there. Polygon, Ronin, Beam, and Myria, Polkadot. So those are the sort of the projects, the blockchains that stuff is being announced on. And say Immutable is sort of, as we'll see, is sort of on a growth spurt at the moment. Partly that's because people are coming off Polygon and going to Immutable, because Immutable is launching its new infrastructure, which is called ZK EVM, but under the hood that's running on Polygon. So we're sort of seeing some sort of swapping out Polygon and going into Immutable. And we sort of see that here a little bit as well. So we had 119 games added, and we had 60 games that were discontinued, basically become inactive or shut down. Again, sort of same sort of categories here. So multi-chain, very big. Unknown, 10%. Other, is actually quite big. I guess over time, blockchains that are not so popular, people tend to cancel their project or move them to other blockchains. So here, actually, Solana's not been doing great. Even though Solana price has been doing well, Solana as a gaming chain has sort of, I think, lost some of its momentum, and as has Polygon. So Polygon is still, as we'll see, the joint biggest single chain in terms of where games are, but it's losing it's lost. Of these 60 games, 12% were on Polygon, whereas Immutable is sort of the same size as Polygon, but only 3% of its games were discontinued. B&B again has been very big in the past, but it's just seen these projects sort of not find product market fit and discontinuing. So that's the sort of we've seen games added, we've seen games being cancelled, and this is where we sort of end up. So we now have on the big blockchain game list, or at the end of Q1 2024, we had 953 games on that list. That's games that are live and games that are in development. The blue bit here I've broken out. These are sort of games that are not what we call non-EVM compatible. So these are games that are not on the Ethereum virtual machine technology. So that's Solana, Ton, Wax, Sui, and Polygon. Solana, Ton, Wax, and Sui. These blue sections here. These are becoming smaller and smaller in terms of gaming. People are really now in the EVM world. That's really what's won out. As I say, Polygon and Immutable are the sort of two joint biggest categories for single chain games, and sort of at the moment the trend is games coming from Polygon to go into Immutable, and that's partly because Immutable is using Polygon under the hood, so they basically come to some sort of cooperative arrangement around that. Ethereum's still big. Obviously no one's running on-chain games on Ethereum because the gas fees are too much, but so over time we'll see sort of Ethereum games going to some of these other scaling solutions. These are mainly games in development or games that sort of haven't chosen their final chain they're deploying on, really. B&B still fairly sizable. Arbitrum growing quickly. So that's the scaling, what we call an L2 solution based on Ethereum. So lots of activity happening around that. Wemix, big South Korean company, pushed a lot of mobile games out. Ronin Blockchain, we've looked at that. Pixels being the #1 game. Gala still has quite a lot of announced games in development. We'll see how that sort of plays out over time. Finchia, again, another South Korean chain, and Oasis, a Japanese-focused gaming chain. So these have, a reasonable amount of games announced that will run on them. We'll see how many of those games actually go live. But again, multi-chain is the sort of the other big trend that's happening. So we have the sort of Polygon Immutable sort of thing going on here, and we have multi-chain is the other big thing happening. But the sort of headline point really is this number is going up. So we've been tracking this for over a year now. And every time we look at the number of games live or in development, the number goes up. So even though, as you can see, new games were added, 119 games were added, 60 games came off, so the number's just going up. So that's not a great surprise. I suppose that sentiment is up in the sector, but even throughout 2023, the number of games was still going up. That's quite a lot of games. Whether we need 1,000 blockchain games, well, that's up to the market to decide, I suppose. But there's still quite a lot of activity and new games obviously coming all the time. So that's a quick roundup of what happened in Q1 2024. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you end of Q2 2024. See what's happened then. See you then. Bye-bye.